5 times the blade entered her body. 5 times, Elara could have let go. But beneath her, a tiny white wolf pup was trembling in the snow, too young to understand why men with swords wanted him dead. So Elara held him tighter. The first blade struck her side. The second tore across her shoulder. The third drove into her back. By the fourth, her fingers were already numb. And when the fifth blade entered her body, Elara could no longer feel the cold beneath her. She could only feel the tiny heartbeat against her chest. Around them, horses screamed. Men shouted. Steel clashed beneath the dark pine trees. But Elara did not move. She curled her body around the helpless pup and whispered the only thing she could still say. "You're safe." Then everything went black. By sunrise, the villagers believed the young healer was dead. 5 wounds. Too much blood. No chance of survival. But just as the first pale light touched the snow-covered rooftops, something began moving beyond the village. One white wolf stepped from the forest. Then another. Then 5. 10. 15. 20. They walked silently through the snow until they reached the little cottage where Elara lay unconscious. The villagers watched from behind their windows. No one dared go outside. The wolves formed a perfect circle around the cottage. They did not attack. They did not howl. They simply waited. Then the Alpha King arrived. Kaelen had ridden through the night after hearing that his only heir had been attacked. He expected to find his pup dead. He expected to find another victim of the assassins. Instead, he found 20 wolves standing guard over the woman who had saved his pup. And when Kaelen stepped closer, the largest wolf slowly lowered its head toward Elara's door. The king froze. Because he knew that gesture. He had seen it only once before, in an ancient painting hidden beneath Frostvale Castle. It was the sign of the Moonbound Oath. A bond that had not appeared for generations. A bond that was never given to kings. It was given to the one person willing to sacrifice everything to protect the royal bloodline. And as Kaelen stared at the unconscious woman inside that cottage, he realized something terrifying. The assassins had not failed. They had awakened something. And the woman they tried to kill might be the only person capable of saving his kingdom. 5 times the blade entered her body. 5 times Elara refused to let go. Snow covered the narrow road outside the village of Briar Hollow, turning the pine branches white and muting every sound beneath a thick winter silence. The moon had disappeared behind clouds, and the only light came from the yellow windows of the little cottages scattered along the hillside. Then came the horses. Their hooves struck the frozen ground like hammer blows. Elara looked up from the bundle of dried herbs in her lap as a line of black horses burst through the trees. Riders leaned low over their saddles, cloaks snapping behind them, and at the center of the group a soldier carried something small against his chest. Something alive. Something whimpering. Elara was already on her feet before the riders reached the village square. The man carrying the bundle nearly fell from his saddle. "Help us!" The cry brought doors opening all along the street. Elara ran toward him. Blood had soaked through the dark royal cloak wrapped around his arms. Beneath it, a tiny white wolf pup trembled violently, one hind leg twisted beneath its body. Its fur was almost silver in the moonlight. Elara's heart tightened. She had seen wounded animals before. Deer caught in traps. Foxes torn by hunters. Birds with broken wings. But never a wolf pup. And never one surrounded by royal guards. "What happened?" she asked. "Ambush," the soldier gasped. "We were attacked on the northern road." Before anyone could say more, a distant horn sounded from the forest. Once. Twice. Then the trees exploded with movement. Dark figures came racing between the pines. The villagers screamed. The royal guards drew their swords. Elara barely had time to understand what was happening before arrows struck the wooden buildings around her. One buried itself in the post beside her head. The horses panicked. One reared. Another crashed sideways into a stack of firewood. The soldier holding the pup was thrown from his saddle. The bundle flew from his arms. Elara saw it falling. She moved without thinking. She caught the pup against her chest just as the horse collapsed beside them. The animal cried out. Elara rolled across the snow, shielding its small body beneath hers. Then someone reached her. A masked man. Steel flashed. The first blade struck beneath her ribs. Pain tore through her so sharply that her breath vanished. Her fingers tightened around the pup. The second blade cut across her shoulder. The third entered her side. The fourth struck her back. And still she did not move away. She heard someone shouting. She heard horses screaming. She heard the crack of steel against steel. But all she could feel was the tiny body trembling beneath her. The pup had stopped crying. Its little nose pressed against her neck. Elara lowered her head. "Stay still," she whispered, though blood was already spreading beneath her coat. "I've got you." The masked attacker raised his blade again. The fifth strike came. Elara felt the impact. Then the world became white. Snow. Moonlight. Silence. Somewhere far away, men were shouting that the attackers were retreating. Elara tried to lift her head. Her arm would not move. She looked down. The pup was still alive. That was enough. Her fingers found the torn edge of its blanket and closed around it. Then darkness took her. By the time King Kaelen of Frostvale arrived, the attackers were gone. He rode into Briar Hollow beneath a sky heavy with snow, surrounded by 20 royal wolves and a dozen mounted guards who had followed him from the mountain fortress. He expected to find his hunting party broken. He expected to find his enemies waiting. He did not expect to find a young woman lying in the snow with 5 wounds across her body and his only surviving pup locked against her chest. Kaelen dismounted. The village became silent. No one dared speak. The Alpha King walked toward Elara. He was younger than the villagers had imagined, but there was nothing young in his eyes. His black hair was damp with snow, his shoulders wrapped in a dark wolfskin cloak, and the silver crown at his brow looked almost colorless beneath the winter moon. He knelt beside her. "Is she alive?" An old healer hurried forward and pressed shaking fingers against Elara's throat. "Barely." Kaelen's gaze moved to the pup. The little wolf was breathing. Alive. Because of her. He reached for it. The pup snarled. The king froze. The tiny animal had never shown aggression toward him before. But now it buried its face against Elara's blood-soaked coat. Kaelen slowly lowered his hand. Something cold moved through him. "Take them both to the cottage," he ordered. The healer hesitated. "Your Majesty." "Now." They carried Elara inside. Her blood stained the floorboards. Her breathing became weaker. The villagers watched helplessly as the royal healers worked beneath the warm glow of lanterns. Then one of them noticed something strange. The pup's blanket had torn open. Beneath the folds of blood-stained cloth, on the fur just above the animal's heart, was a tiny silver mark. A crescent surrounded by 20 small points. Kaelen saw it. His face changed. For the first time that night, the feared Alpha King looked afraid. Because that mark had not appeared by chance. It belonged to a story Frostvale had tried to forget. And somewhere beyond the village, 20 white wolves lifted their heads toward the mountain. Then they began to howl. Elara survived the night. Barely. For 3 days, she remained unconscious in the little cottage while snow covered Briar Hollow and the royal physicians came and went beneath the watch of armed guards. She dreamed of running through a forest she had never seen. Tall pines rose around her. Silver light poured between their branches. And always, somewhere ahead, she heard wolves. Not threatening. Calling. Each time she tried to follow the sound, the forest disappeared. Then she woke. The first thing she saw was a small white face resting beside her pillow. The pup was watching her. Its ears lifted when her eyes opened. Elara tried to smile. "You stayed." The pup's tail moved once against the blanket. She attempted to sit. Pain immediately drove her back. A tray beside the bed rattled when her hand caught its edge. The door opened. A royal healer hurried inside. "Don't move." Elara looked past him. "Where is the pup?" "Right there." She looked down. The animal had climbed carefully onto the mattress and curled against her uninjured side. The healer sighed. "It refuses to leave you." Elara's eyes softened. "So do I." The healer stared at her. Then, despite himself, smiled. For the first time since the attack, Elara felt something warmer than pain. She had no family waiting for her. No husband. No children. No place in the royal court. Her entire life had been a small cottage, a basket of herbs, and people who remembered her only when they were sick. Yet this frightened little creature had chosen her. That mattered. Outside, the village changed. Royal soldiers stood at every entrance. Travelers were questioned. The gates were watched. And rumors traveled faster than the winter wind. Some said Elara was a witch. Others said she had bewitched the king's heir. A few whispered that the 5 wounds should have killed her. They were right. They should have. On the 4th morning, Kaelen came to see her. He entered without guards. Elara noticed that immediately. The king stopped near the bed. The pup lifted its head. Kaelen watched it. Apparently, you are the only person it trusts. Elara shifted carefully. It was frightened. So was I. The words came quietly. Elara looked at him. For a moment, neither spoke. The Alpha King was feared throughout Frostvale. Stories said he had defeated 3 rival packs before his 25th winter. They said enemies went silent when his wolves entered a battlefield. But standing beside a wounded village healer, he looked less like a king. More like a man who had almost lost something precious. "Why did you save him?" he asked. Elara frowned. "I don't know. You could have run. I suppose. You knew the attackers were after him." "I knew they were after something." Kaelen studied her. "And you still stayed." Elara glanced at the pup. He was small. Something shifted in the king's expression. The answer seemed almost too simple. Perhaps that was why it troubled him. For the next several days, Kaelen kept returning. Never for long. Sometimes he stood near the window while the healers changed Elara's bandages. Sometimes he watched the pup eat. Once, he found Elara teaching the animal to drink from a shallow wooden bowl. The pup splashed half the water onto the floor. Elara laughed. Kaelen stared. It was the first time he had heard that sound. He looked away before she noticed. But Varric noticed everything. The Chancellor stood in the shadows of the castle hall, his hands folded inside his sleeves. He had served Frostvale for 22 years. He knew every royal secret. He knew which guards could be bribed, which nobles could be frightened, which servants could be bought. And he knew exactly what the silver mark meant. The ancient Moonbound Oath. A legend older than Frostvale itself. A bond between the royal bloodline and 20 guardian wolves. But the old records contained one warning. The wolves did not choose kings. They chose the one who protected the bloodline when the king could not. Varric's jaw tightened. If the legend was awakening, his plans were in danger. He needed Elara gone. Quietly. Before Kaelen discovered the truth. That night, the castle slept beneath a heavy blanket of snow. Elara lay awake beside the pup. A strange sound came through the window. One wolf. Then another. Then another. She sat up. The pup lifted its head. The howls spread across the mountains. North. South. East. West. 20 different voices. Perfectly spaced. Perfectly timed. The entire fortress seemed to hold its breath. Elara walked slowly to the window. Moonlight touched the snow-covered courtyard. Nothing moved. Then the first wolf stepped from the trees. White as the snow. Another appeared behind it. Then another. Elara counted. 5, 10, 15, 20. Every wolf lifted its face toward her window. The pup beside her began to tremble. Then a faint silver glow appeared beneath its fur. Elara's hand rose to the glass. Outside, 20 wolves lowered their heads. And every one of them was looking directly at her. Morning came slowly. The castle servants were the first to see them. A maid carrying firewood stopped in the courtyard and dropped the bundle. The logs scattered across the snow. She did not move. 20 white wolves stood around Elara's cottage. They formed a perfect circle. No snarling. No growling. No aggression. Only silence. The largest wolf stood at the front. Its coat was thick and pale, its eyes a deep amber that seemed almost golden beneath the morning light. A guard approached with his spear raised. The wolf looked at him. He stopped. Something about that gaze made his hand lower. More guards arrived. Then the captain. Then the royal physicians. Soon half the castle was watching from the windows. Kaelen came running. He stepped into the courtyard and stopped. The wolves turned toward him. The king looked at them. They did not bow. They did not move. Then his gaze shifted to Elara's cottage. The largest wolf turned toward the door. Kaelen understood. Open it. The guard hesitated. Your Majesty. Open the door. The door creaked inward. Elara stood there in a pale dress, one hand pressed against her bandaged side. The pup sat at her feet. The 20 wolves remained perfectly still. Elara looked at them. The largest wolf walked forward. One step. Then another. It stopped inches from her. Elara's breathing became shallow. The animal lowered its head. Slowly. Carefully. Its nose touched her trembling fingers. The wolf closed its eyes. Elara's eyes filled with tears. She had never touched a wild wolf. Yet she did not feel afraid. Her hand moved gently through its fur. The wolf remained still. Behind it, the other 19 lowered their heads. Kaelen watched in silence. He knew what he was seeing. The Moonbound Oath. The legend had returned. But Varric arrived before he could speak. This is forbidden. His voice cut through the courtyard. Everyone turned. Varric walked forward, his face hard. Those wolves are under royal protection. Someone has summoned them. Elara stepped back. I didn't summon anyone. Then explain why they came. I can't. Varric looked toward the council members gathering behind him. That is exactly the problem. Kaelen's expression darkened. Careful. Varric bowed. Your Majesty, I am only protecting the crown. No. Kaelen looked at the wolves. You are protecting yourself. Silence. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. The wolves had already chosen their side. That made Elara dangerous. Not because she wanted power. Because power had begun gathering around her. Kaelen ordered the council into the Great Hall. Elara was brought with them. The chamber was enormous, built from dark mountain stone, with banners hanging from the rafters and a great fire burning beneath the carved throne. She stood near the center. 20 wolves remained outside. The council demanded answers. Who was she? Where had she learned the old northern songs? Why did the royal pup trust her? Why had the wolves chosen her? Elara could answer only some of them. She had learned the songs from her mother. A woman who had died when Elara was 9. Her mother had always sung them while gathering herbs. Elara had never known they were royal songs. Kaelen listened carefully. Then Varric produced an old parchment. He unrolled it. An ancient drawing showed 20 white wolves surrounding a healer. The healer's face had been worn away by time. But around her neck was a small silver pendant. Elara touched her own necklace. The same shape. Kaelen looked at her. Where did you get that? My mother. Varric's face went pale. Elara noticed. So did Kaelen. The council fell silent. Varric tried to recover. Coincidence. But the word sounded weak. Kaelen ordered him to investigate the old records. Then, before anyone could leave, a wolf entered the hall. It carried something in its mouth. A strip of black cloth. The wolf walked directly to Elara. Dropped it at her feet. She stared down. A silver royal clasp was sewn into the fabric. Kaelen bent to pick it up. His fingers closed around the cloth. He looked toward the guards. Where did this come from? No one answered. The captain stepped forward. My king. Kaelen's eyes hardened. Tell me. The captain swallowed. The cloth belongs to the royal guard. The hall went silent. Elara slowly looked toward the castle windows. The wolves were no longer watching her. They were watching the fortress. As if they already knew where the enemy was hiding. And for the first time, Kaelen understood the truth. The attack in Briar Hollow had never been an attack from outside. Someone inside Frostvale had opened the door. After that day, the castle changed. Doors that had once remained open were locked. Guards followed Elara wherever she went. Servants lowered their voices when she passed. The warmth she had begun to feel disappeared beneath suspicion. Even Kaelen seemed different. He still came to see her. But now his visits were shorter. His eyes carried the weight of unanswered questions. Elara understood. Trust was fragile. Especially in a kingdom built on secrets. One evening, while snow struck the windows, Elara noticed the largest white wolf standing beyond the courtyard gate. It looked toward her. Then toward the mountains. Then back again. Elara understood without knowing how. She followed. She wrapped herself in a wool cloak and slipped from the cottage. The wolf waited. It led her through a narrow path behind the castle. Snow reached her ankles. Then her knees. The mountain rose ahead like a wall. At its base stood an abandoned stone chapel. The door was half buried. Elara pushed it open. Cold air breathed from inside. The wolf entered. Elara followed. Moonlight fell through a broken roof. Old paintings covered the walls. She lifted her lantern. Her breath stopped. 20 white wolves surrounded a healer. Beside them stood the first Alpha King of Frostvale. The healer was holding a wounded wolf pup. Elara stepped closer. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. Her eyes moved to the woman's neck. A silver pendant. The same pendant Elara had inherited from her mother. Her hand trembled. Then she saw another image. The healer lying in the snow. The Alpha King kneeling beside her. The 20 wolves surrounding them. And beneath the painting were ancient words. Elara could not read them. But she knew the song. The same melody her mother had sung every winter. She whispered the first line. The pup behind her whimpered. The silver mark beneath its fur began to glow. Elara turned. The light spread like moonlight beneath ice. She stepped closer. The pup touched her hand. The mark brightened. Suddenly she understood. The wolves had not chosen her because of blood. They had chosen her because of what she had done. She had protected the pup when nobody else would. Just as the healer in the painting had once protected the first royal heir. Elara's eyes filled. Her mother had known. She had known all along. A sound came from behind her. Stone scraped against stone. Elara turned. The chapel door slammed shut. Men stepped from the shadows. She recognized the royal crest on their cloaks. But there was no mercy in their faces. The largest wolf lunged. A spear struck the stone between them. Another guard seized Elara from behind. She struggled. Pain tore through her healing wounds. The pup cried out, "Take the animal." Elara fought harder. No. One guard struck her. The lantern fell. Darkness swallowed the chapel. She heard the pup snarling. Then a door opened somewhere beneath the floor. Hands dragged her down stone steps. She screamed once. No one came. The tunnel swallowed the sound. Far above, Kaelen returned to the cottage. He found the door open. The bed empty. Blood on the floor. His face went still. He followed the trail. It ended at the chapel. Inside, the wolves were gone. The old paintings remained. Kaelen saw the broken lantern. Then he saw the blood. His hand closed into a fist. Find her. Guards scattered through the mountain. But the wolves did something else. They ran. 20 white shapes disappeared into the snow. Not away from the castle. Toward the mountain. Toward Elara. Elara woke on cold stone. Her wrists were tied. A single lantern burned across the chamber. The walls were carved directly into the mountain. She tried to move. Pain spread through her side. Varric stepped from the shadows. You should have stayed a village healer. Elara stared at him. You killed those people. I gave them purpose. They attacked a child. The pup is not a child. His eyes hardened. It is a crown. Elara looked toward the corner. The pup was there, bound inside a wooden cage. Its little body shook. Elara's heart broke. Varric crouched beside her. The king is weak because he loves that creature. Elara said nothing. And you are weaker because you love it. He smiled. I will kill the pup. The kingdom will believe you caused its death. Kaelen will lose the confidence of the council. Then I will take control. Elara looked at the animal. The pup's eyes found hers. She moved closer despite the pain. Varric watched. Why? Elara did not answer. She reached through the bars. The pup pressed its nose against her fingers. That small movement was enough. Something inside Elara became still. She was afraid. She was hurt. She had every reason to save herself. But she knew what would happen if she walked away. The pup would die. So she stayed. Outside the mountain, Kaelen found the 20 wolves waiting beside a wall of ancient stone. The largest wolf scratched the ground. Kaelen looked down. A hidden mark had been carved into the snow. The royal crest. Then the wolf struck the stone with its paw. Kaelen understood. There's a passage. The guards cleared the snow. Behind it was an ancient doorway. They entered. The tunnel twisted beneath the mountain. The wolves moved ahead. Kaelen followed. Deep underground, Varric opened the cage. The pup scrambled backward. Elara threw herself between them. Varric drew his blade. Move. She did not. The blade rose. Then came a sound. A low growl. Not from the chamber. From the tunnel. Varric turned. Another growl answered. Then another. The guards looked toward the passage. The darkness seemed to move. 20 white wolves emerged from it. Their paws made no sound. Their eyes reflected the lantern light. Kaelen appeared behind them. His sword was drawn. His face was cold. Step away from her. Varric backed away. The chamber filled with soldiers. The truth became impossible to hide. The black cloth. The secret tunnels. The stolen royal crest. The imprisoned pup. Everything pointed to Varric. He attacked. Chaos erupted. Steel rang against stone. The wolves moved with terrifying precision, driving the guards away without tearing them apart. Kaelen reached Elara. He cut her bonds. She nearly collapsed. He caught her. For one moment, neither spoke. Then Varric lunged toward the pup. Elara saw him. She broke away from Kaelen. She threw herself over the animal. The blade came down. Kaelen stepped between them. Steel struck steel. The king blocked the blow. The 20 wolves surged forward. Varric stumbled backward. His heel struck loose stone. The mountain shook. A crack split the ceiling. Dust poured down. Someone screamed. Kaelen looked upward. Run! The chamber began collapsing. Stone crashed behind them. The passage filled with dust. Elara stumbled. Kaelen caught her. The pup ran beside them. Behind them, the 20 wolves followed. Then the mountain roared. The world disappeared beneath falling stone. When Elara opened her eyes, she saw snow. Not darkness. Snow. Cold morning light poured through the broken mouth of the mountain passage. She tried to breathe. Pain answered. Then she heard a heartbeat. Not hers. The pup was pressed against her chest. Alive. She lifted one hand. Her fingers touched its fur. The animal licked them. Elara closed her eyes. A tear slipped toward her temple. Across the snow, Kaelen was kneeling. His shoulder was bleeding. His crown was gone. His cloak was torn. He looked less like a king than he ever had before. He had carried her through the final stretch of the tunnel after the collapse. The 20 wolves had surrounded them, guiding the way through the darkness. One by one, they emerged into the morning. For several moments, no one moved. Then Kaelen looked at Elara. You stayed. Her lips curved faintly. So did you. He looked down. The words seemed to reach somewhere beneath the armor he had worn for years. Behind them, royal soldiers dragged Varric from the ruined passage. He was alive. Broken. Defeated. His secrets were carried into daylight with him. The council could no longer protect him. The evidence was everywhere. The assassins. The hidden tunnels. The stolen royal crest. The ancient records. and the witnesses who had survived his orders. Varek was stripped of his title and imprisoned in the northern fortress. Frostvale learned the truth. The people who had once whispered that Elara was a witch now left baskets of bread, honey, wool, and herbs outside her door. But Elara did not become a queen. She did not ask for a title. She did not want one. Kaelen gave her something much simpler. A home. He rebuilt the small cottage beside the eastern forest, where the mountains could be seen beyond the trees. He placed a stone path between the cottage and the castle. No guards. No chains. No commands. Just a path. The pup grew. Its legs became strong. Its fur remained white. The silver mark above its heart never faded. And wherever Elara went, the animal followed. Winter passed. Then spring. Then another winter. The 20 wolves returned whenever the first snow touched the ground. They never entered the village. They never harmed the people. They simply waited beyond the trees, as if keeping an old promise. Months after the mountain collapse, Elara walked into the forest alone. Snow fell gently around her. The trees stood tall and quiet. She heard paws behind her. She turned. The pup was there. No longer small. It had become a powerful young wolf, taller than her waist, with the same silver eyes she remembered from the night she had first held it. It ran past her. Then stopped. 20 white wolves appeared between the trees. The largest one approached. Elara stood still. The wolf lowered its head. She placed her hand against its fur. The others followed. One by one, 20 wolves bowed their heads. Not because she was a queen. Not because she carried royal blood. Not because she had conquered anything. They remembered. They remembered the woman beneath the horse. The woman bleeding in the snow. The woman who had 5 blades in her body and still refused to release a frightened pup. Behind the trees, Kaelen watched. He did not interrupt. He understood now. Some bonds were not created by crowns. Some families were not created by blood. And some people became powerful not because they could defeat the world, but because, when the world gave them every reason to walk away, they stayed. Elara looked toward the mountains. The wind moved gently through the pines. Snow settled on her hair. The young wolf pressed against her side. She rested her hand on its back. For the first time in her life, she did not feel like someone standing at the edge of another person's world. She was home. The 20 wolves turned toward the forest. The pup followed them a few steps, then looked back. Elara smiled. Go! The young wolf ran. White fur disappeared into white snow. Kaelen stepped from behind the trees. Elara looked at him. Neither needed to say anything. He simply stood beside her. Together, they watched the wolves vanish into the mountains. The forest became quiet again. But this time, the silence did not feel empty. It felt peaceful. Because somewhere beyond those trees, 20 white wolves carried an ancient promise into the future. And at the center of that promise was a woman who had never believed she was special. A healer. A stranger. A girl from a forgotten village. A woman who had been given nothing by the world except reasons to be afraid. Yet when a helpless life needed someone to stand between it and death, she had not asked who would reward her. She had not asked whether anyone would remember her. She had simply reached out her arms. And stayed. That was why the wolves came. That was why the Alpha King trusted her. And that was why, long after the scars on her body faded, the people of Frostvale continued telling the story of the woman who was stabbed 5 times protecting a royal pup. And woke to find 20 wolves waiting outside her door.